Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined by a gentleman who's been recommended by several of my viewers, Mr. Reuben D'Silva. He is running in Congressional District 1 in Las Vegas. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Reuben. Glad to have you on.
Thank you for having me. It's such a joy to be on your show.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joy.
So Reuben has quite a resume. He studied, well, first you were born in Mumbai, India.
It was Bombay back then, yes, Mumbai.
And you moved here as an undocumented immigrant, which
yes,
is
we were
interesting.
in this country, yes, for a long time. Me and my family were.
Wow. So this has got to be very interesting to see what's going on right now, to say the least. Then you came here and you studied comparative religion and politics at Yale. So that was, it's worth putting on your resume, I guess, And now you're a teacher, but prior to that, you're a veteran. You were a Marine. So you've definitely done so much in your life. What made you become a Marine, first off? And Reuben has a really fascinating story. He has a Purple Heart now. So if you just kind of want to get into why you became a Marine and also the things that happened once you joined.
Yeah, that's a good question. As you mentioned, I'm an immigrant to this country. My parents brought me here when I was 2 years old from India. And we did live without papers here for a long time, almost 10 years. And, my mom she did receive papers to be deported. We had to really fight that, in a day and age when many Democrats really weren't even helping us. They used to call us illegal immigrants, so on and so forth. I still remember those days. But we were able to save my mom from being deported. And there was always a sense being an immigrant. And the neighborhood that I grew up in was a very immigrant working class neighborhood here in Las Vegas. It's called North Las Vegas, the Old North. And there was really a sense there with many of the young kids, like, hey, look, in order to prove ourselves, one of the best things that we can do is serve in the military. That's one thing, to say that, hey, look, we are as American as anybody else. But another thing, a real reason as to why I joined the military was because of the great benefits that I was looking at receiving. Again, my dad was a bus driver. My mom was a Head Start teacher back then. We didn't make much. We were on food stamps and had received government aid. So the military offered us a pathway to a free college, home ownership later on with the VA loan. And I looked at all of this. I said, the military can maybe give me some great benefits and help me, climb up the ladder, so to speak. And it was a great decision, that I made. It really elevated me and it helped me, formulate my own identity at the time. That, hey, look, even myself being a little brown kid, from North Las Vegas, I too am as American as anybody else.
Sure.
Ripped my arm open and off almost. It was an AK-47 that ripped through my arm. And I remember seeing the guy. He shot once, and I saw the muzzle flash. And then he started repeatedly shooting at me. And I got, I remember the bullets whizzing by my head and face. And I thought to myself, I have to open up on this guy right now with my bell-fed machine gun. But I hesitated for a moment. I said, stop, I can't do this, because I immediately realized now that this guy was shooting at me from an apartment building. And then something very controversial took place then. That still today becomes a bit of a controversy with many of my fellow Marines. And, it comes up, some people see me as that I was a hero. Others say, oh, you were totally wrong for doing that. But instead of opening up with my machine gun on an apartment building, I responded back with my M4, which is was my sidearm at the time. And I responded back to him. We exchanged rounds. He ducked back into the building and fell back. So I executed proper battle drill. But if I knew that if I opened up with my machine gun, we were again on a convoy that now had one Mark 19, which is an automatic grenade launcher, and also several M2 machine guns which can shoot airplanes down. I mean, this is a heavy machine gun. So again, I know for a fact that I saved many lives in that building, civilians. But on the same token, I know we didn't get that individual who was trying to kill me. But I feel good about the fact that, again, these civilian lives were saved. And that there are many folks in my unit who said, you did the right thing, Corporal D'Silva, by by making sure that we again didn't level that building. In order to take out one insurgent, I don't think it's fair that we have to kill, maybe 6 or 7, innocent civilians in the process. And I stand by that.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. I got goosebumps.
It's something. It's crazy. I can't believe I went through that experience.
Wow, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And that's what's interesting. Speaking about immigration and being in the service, we are witnessing people being deported who served in our military.
Yes. That is a great travesty.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, it's completely unjust. When we signed as members of the armed services, when we signed that piece of paper that said that we're willing to give everything up to and including our own lives for this country, I think that constitutes loyalty in and of itself. And we've been having these situations where members of the armed forces who have served in war even have been deported and sent back to their home countries. Again, it doesn't fit right with me. I'm actually supporting legislation. If I am in Congress when we win this seat, that would immediately create an opt-in, opt-out system where once you join the armed forces, if you're an immigrant, you become a citizen, and it would be your choice then to whether to opt out of citizenship. And again, knowing most of the men and women that I serve with, most are going to opt in. Of course, it took me a long time to earn my citizenship. I joined the military in 2004. It wasn't until 2007 that I received my citizenship. I petitioned many times to receive citizenship, didn't get it. And when I was recovering at the hospital, Balboa Naval Hospital in San Diego, there was a caseworker who came to me and said, "Hey, look, we see that you're not a citizen. You're a Purple Heart recipient. You've given so much for this country. We need to naturalize you." And it was one of those moments where I knew that, hey, finally, yes, I can finally do this. I just had my anniversary, June 6th. 2007 was when I was shot 11 years ago. And so it was one of those really poignant moments where I was like, hey, look, I was in Iraq fighting for their right to form a democracy or vote, so on and so forth. But I myself couldn't even vote when I came back home. But I also told the INS folks there that, hey, this is not just about me. There's several other immigrants who are in my platoon. My good friend, he's a sergeant now, Sergeant Quintero. Many of my platoon mates who were green card holders, they weren't citizens. I said, hey, if I'm going to get my citizenship, you got to make damn sure that you make sure that they all also get their citizenships as well. And I'm proud to say that all of them are citizens today.
Awesome. I like that happy ending.
you got to fight for them. Remember that there are many of our brothers and sisters who were deported and who have served this country and who are now living in exile, so to speak. They're Americans, 1,000%. And we have to do all that we can to repatriate them. And they can work on policies where this sort of a thing could be avoided. And I think that automatic citizenship, when you sign up and serve with the United States military, is just one of those policy measures that we can put in place.
Absolutely. Mr. Joe Sacco, who's watching, he sent me a video the other day. And Joe,
what's going on, Joe?
In the comments.
Love you, man.
I was completely blown away by this video. There was a gentleman from the Black Democratic Empowerment Project, and he asked the guy you're running against, who is the incumbent.
Yeah, it's Dina Titus. She's the congresswoman, the incumbent congresswoman, corporate Democrat, establishment Democrat.
This woman, you ever see something that you're actually embarrassed for the person? This was so bad. Joe will post it. The way this woman behaves, if that does not get you to not vote for that person, I don't know what will. There's something about progressives that you guys don't care about debating. You're like, bring it on. You know, whereas the establishment, they never, ever, ever want to debate because they're taking on, they're going to have to lie about stuff. They know they will. And yeah, that was incredible. So you guys can watch in the comments when Joe posts that. Who else are you going against?
It's myself and Dina. We're going head to head in this race. Myself and the incumbent congresswoman. And one thing I will mention about the video, because I have seen the video. Again, I know Demi. That's Dina Titus's staff member. She's a great person. She was she was really caught off guard. But the real issue is with the person who she works for, Congresswoman Dina Titus. All we're asking for is a simple debate. Debates are essential to democracy. Debates are actually the real foundation for democracy, period. Sure. And to shun away from that, I've sent repeated mail, there's been many constituents who've asked for the debate, but Congresswoman Titus simply refuses to debate. And this is simply a political move. I'm a high school teacher. I teach history, social studies in high school. And one of the prime ways how we educate the classroom and educate our students is through debate. If you have an idea and somebody else has a counter idea, it's important to have that discourse and that back and forth so you can formulate a better understanding of the issue. So when somebody who is as seasoned in politics, again, she's been serving in office. This is her 4th decade in politics. She's been in politics since the 80s, almost as long as I've been alive. But again, she knows that debates are essential, and to really hinder a debate is actually working against the people who we're trying to educate. Sure. The Democratic Party, and this is one of my issues with especially the local Democrats. So we talk about expanding the base, getting more people fired up and involved in the party. But when you stop having this sort of discourse at a very basic level, it hurts. Dina Titus is hurting the progressive movement. She's hurting the Democratic Party. She's hurting the growth, especially within young people and people of color who are new to the movement and who don't vote in primaries. It's massively disproportionate in the amounts of the amounts that we don't vote. And in order to grow that, you have a candidate now who's from both those communities. We should have that debate. So again, I would, if Congresswoman Dina Titus is watching, I hope that we can have a debate. It's still not too late. We have a couple days before the primary. This is important. This is the right thing to do, Congresswoman. Don't shy away from a debate. You should get out there and you should have this conversation with me. I don't know if you think that that if you're afraid of me or what. I'm not that scary of a guy. I'm a young high school teacher, running for Congress who simply wants to have an open format, public forum where we can actually talk about the issues together. It's important for the citizens and for the voters in this district to have that. That's all I want to do. And again, Demi, I know you want to cover for the Congresswoman, but please inform her that this is the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. It's the honorable thing to do. And the sitting Congresswoman should know that.
Absolutely. And, if she's open to this, somehow I doubt she's watching because I'm a little not her type, I'm guessing. But if she is, hey, hit me up. I will do that debate right on the air.
That'd be awesome. I'm already saying that is okay with me. Count me in.
That would be phenomenal. Now, you did state that she does take money from the establishment. Mm-hmm. And what is your stance on that?
Oh, I'm somebody who doesn't accept one dime from a corporate entity at all. Dina Titus has taken money from Southwest Airlines, the American Bankers Association, Nevada Energy. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And again, it's something that we progressives should be very serious about, and Democrats as well. If we're willing to, if we're saying that we're against big money, then we should stay away from it. It's not just about talking the talk. We gotta walk the walk as well. Practice the principles that we so much espouse and preach. So again, I haven't accepted a dime from a corporation, and I've done well with the individual contributions. If you look at myself and Dina Titus, we're very comparable. She's raised about 100,000. I've raised about, I think, when the FEC report comes out, about 70,000. If that was it, we'd be very much competitive. She's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars from special interests, and that again, as you know, is something that really hurts progressive candidates who are trying to stay true to their principles. And many folks here too, I know here in Nevada, folks like Michael Weiss, we talked about him earlier, who hasn't accepted a dime, from a corporation. There's another progressive candidate in CD4, Amy Villela, who's also very much attuned to this message. And I think that if we Democrats, again, there's great people running on the establishment side, but the practice of not taking money is important. If we're going to fight big money, we need to not accept a dime from them so they don't have any influence over us in the end. This is the reason why I personally believe we don't have a single-payer healthcare system, because of the influence that the health insurance companies have on our politicians, both Republican and Democrat. And again, I'll be one of those individuals now, congressmen, when elected, who fight back, who won't have and they won't have a dime of a control over me, like so many other Congress people that we have in office today.
Awesome. I had Congressman Ro Khanna on, and I'm having him again next week. And he was discussing how he came up with legislature to have people in Congress sign it if they agreed not to take any more PAC money. and only 6 people signed, including him. So, and there's, a few more than 6 people in Congress.
Oh, of course.
So getting, Bernie-crats like yourself elected and in there to replace these people can change our entire system. And could give us single payer, and it could stop fracking and all of these things.
Of course. And I'll say one thing about Congressman Ro Khanna. I'm a big fan of his. He's a very brave individual. And again, he to go in there and to say, I'm not taking any corporate money, and I'm really going to be about my principle, speaks volumes about the individual's character. And when I win, count me in, Congressman Ro Khanna. If you're watching this, or if you get to see the replay, count me in. When I'm a congressman, I also want to go ahead and sign on to that initiative there. We need to get money out of politics, period. And again, let me say one more thing about that. This is also an issue now that has bipartisan support. We progressives talk about this, but there are many Republicans too who say the same thing. Let's get some campaign finance reform. Let's get the corporations out of politics. It's one thing when if myself, as an individual, I had a brother who cares deeply about me. He may be a school teacher or a nurse, and he wants to donate a lot of money to me. He can only donate $2,700 per election in the primary and $2,700 in the general. But if you're a PAC, you can donate $10,000. You can donate $20,000. Or if you're a super PAC, it's unlimited. It just does not make sense. It just works against the interests of working people, of the 99%. And we have to do all that we can to reform those laws and to, again, make a campaign finance reform, not just a secondary or tertiary issue, but the prime issue in this next congressional cycle. And I'm looking at leading that fight forward. I'm somebody who's not accepted a dime from any corporate entity. And I look forward to getting and working with people like Ro Khanna to making this happen.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's what's it's a very interesting parallel, because abhorrent and disgusting as Trump is, he didn't take, he didn't take corporate money either. So I think that attracted so many people to him on the Republican side. So I definitely agree. A lot of them want money out of politics as well. And speaking on universal health care, another problem we definitely have is big pharma and prices of prescriptions. Would you introduce legislation to basically put a cap on big pharma, or if Bernie reintroduces a newer version, would you be open to signing on to it?
Oh, of course. Anything that again mitigates the influence that big pharma has on our healthcare industry, and it is a very stronghold across the board, across the entire industry. We have to fight against this. We have to allow big, especially government entities such as Medicare, the VA, to be able to negotiate for drug prices. We know that it's going to bring down drug prices here in this country, and we also have to look at importing, pharmaceuticals from other countries. There's certain restrictions that are placed upon that. And again, this is because of the influence of big pharma and the amount of money that they dish out to politicians, again, Republican as well as Democratic. So this is again a very comprehensive issue, but I'm very strongly in favor of working against the influence that big pharma has. And I think that two places where we can start is, again, allowing and working on policy measures that allow the United States to now import pharmaceuticals at a cheaper rate from outside of the country, and to also allow the government to negotiate drug prices with these major pharmaceutical companies. That's two ways that, for sure, if we win in gaining those policy measures, we can actually start bringing down the cost of drugs dramatically across the board.
100%. You also, on a healthcare kind of note, you also are very supportive about legalization of cannabis.
Oh yes, very supportive.
Your face kind of lit up. Can you explain why you're so passionate about that?
Yes, my face did light up. Lit up is probably a very good word very good phrase to use to describe this entire situation. But again, I first and foremost look at the issue here as a social justice issue. I know there's economic aspects as well here. But I grew up in a very tough neighborhood in North Las Vegas, and I remember when they had mandatory minimums for people who were caught with a certain amount of cannabis and marijuana with them. It was a week-long stint in jail, a local jail. Again, and I saw so many of my friends get caught up in it. These are good people, who had to hustle a little bit here and there. But on the same token, being put in jail and then, facing recidivism and getting caught up in that cycle really hurt so many of my friends who I knew had bright futures ahead of them, but now had to deal with criminal records, even felonies in some cases. That this has hindered them. So that's one real issue that I'm looking at in terms of, now that we're legalizing cannabis and marijuana in so many states, we need to first and foremost work on expunging the records of folks who are having to deal with criminal records now that have to do with cannabis possession, so on and so forth. The other thing is the economic factor. Here in Nevada, we have illegal recreational use, but oftentimes the money is stuck and we can't move it around as fluidly as we should because the federal government has now still deemed cannabis an illegal substance. It's a controlled substance. If we deschedule it, then we can again totally free up the possibility of moving monies from this industry, and then also start working on curtailing the records of so many people who are now caught up, because they had a gram of marijuana on them or something like that, or a couple blunts or something. This is completely something that is in the past now. We need to start looking forward. And the forward is legalization, complete legalization. My take is let's regulate marijuana like we regulate alcohol. Deschedule it at the federal level and let the states from there on out go ahead and try to regulate them in their own fashions. But it has to be taken off the scheduled list of controlled substances. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Do you guys have private prisons where you are?
Oh, as a federal representative, we should completely ban them everywhere, not just here in Nevada, but completely across the board. I think that by creating a profit margin, a profit factor now in an industry that's designed to imprison people, put people in jail, it's completely ludicrous to me. The state should be the one who adjudicates and regulates the prison system here, not private companies who are brought in on contracts. All it does is create an incentive now to lock people up, and again, it's totally against the justice credence of this country. And I'm 1,000,000% against for-profit prisons. And I will work as a congressman to eradicate it at the federal level, and then also use the seat of a congressman to work on a state-by-state basis to completely take it out of our prison and criminal justice system here in this country, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, and we know that it hurts disproportionately people of color as well. Mm-hmm. And on that note, you do on your platform you do have civil rights. Mm-hmm. What specifically are you passionate about?
Yeah, when it comes to civil rights, that's important that you talked about the for-profit prison system. I think I'm looking forward into the 21st century. I think that the two biggest civil rights issues are going to be education and the criminal justice system. They say that the new Jim Crow today is the criminal justice system. The other Jim Crow is the education system. We've seen school districts, myself included. Here in Las Vegas, I'm a high school teacher. We have schools now that are overwhelmingly minority or overwhelmingly of just one ethnic group. The school that I teach at, Rancho High School, is 70% Hispanic. We have these issues now where oftentimes schools themselves are being becoming segregated, and that is causing problems because when you look at the schools where the bulk of the minority students are getting their educations, they're the schools that have the overcrowded classrooms. They're the schools that are not getting the proper textbooks. My world history textbooks are all ripped up. I've asked many times, can we get new textbooks? But I get the same answer. We don't have the funding for it. We don't have the funding for it. But if you go to some of the other schools here in our suburbs, they have great parking lots, they have small class sizes, they have the best teachers, and it really becomes a situation now where our inner cities and our schools that actually have the minority students, black and brown, almost universally, unilaterally, are the schools that are faced with the greatest issues. And this, Joy, that education is really the great catapult. It's what allowed me to go from being a kid in the hood, an undocumented immigrant, to go to Yale University and to study that it was the fact that I took schooling seriously. And it's the same sort of a situation that we're dealing with on the education side. The criminal justice system is another great travesty. You look at the amount of black men. They say that 1 out of 3 black men is going to have some sort of interaction with the criminal justice system in their lifetime. and this goes down for Caucasians. It's like 1 out of 15 or something like that. It's disproportionately affecting minority males, brown males, and specifically black males. And it's important that we address this issue and say this should be of concern, not just to the minority community, but to America at large. And race, again, and I'm glad that there are many conversations taking place around race. It seems to be that there's a renewed focus on the plights of us darker skinned people here in this country. And it's a good thing. Let's have these conversations, and let's try to understand what we've always faced in this country, being a minority, being ethnic minorities, being people with darker skin. There's a lot of work to do, and I'm willing to work on policies, again, that adjudicate that. One thing we can start immediately on is banning the box at the federal level, when you have to check that box stating whether you've been convicted of a felony or not. Let that conversation come up during the interview, not during the actual application process. Give that individual who was convicted, of a felony, who oftentimes disproportionately, again, are minority males, give them the opportunity to prove themselves. Look at their resume, check their resume, look at their credentials, and then during the interview, that's when you should be asking those sort of questions, not during the application process itself, because we know that a lot of those applications are immediately thrown to the side or thrown in the trash, and that person who's worked so hard to recommit themselves to get legitimate is then again denied the opportunity to get a job or start a career. So let's ban the box.
They've already paid their debt, so to speak.
Very true. Already.
Something else that is so incredibly important that you do talk about, which I discuss with every single one of my guests, is election reform.
Oh, yes.
There needs to be voter reform, election reform. Mm-hmm. You are in Las Vegas, and as a burner, that was one of the biggest travesties in 2016. What they did was just abhorrent. It was so disgusting. So what are your thoughts as far as, now being a candidate?
Oh, yeah, you're going to have, I'm going to give you a dissertation, so I'm going to try to be as succinct as possible. I have a lot to say about this, especially being a progressive anti-establishment candidate myself. I think that the parties, and again, I look at this strictly to the realm of the Democratic experience, has way too much influence and power in this process. We have caucuses here. They're called the Democratic Assembly Caucus, the Democratic Senate Caucus, that endorse candidates in the primary. We've had instances of the DCCC getting involved in races. Michael Weiss's race was a perfect example of this, where you have a national Democratic arm of Congress getting involved in a primary, which to me is not just at all. You have prominent Democrats, nationally recognized Democrats, endorsing candidates, in these races. I know Joe Biden made an endorsement in one of these races over here. Of course, he's a private citizen now; he can do his thing, but his endorsement carries a lot of weight. So it's those sort of things I think that we need to be wary of first and foremost. And it's always the establishment candidates who get those endorsements, and those sort of the DCCC is not going to get behind a progressive. I'll be damned. They hopefully we can change their attitude on us, but I'll be damned that happens in this election. And so that's part and parcel of the problem. The party itself and party apparatuses or apparatuses that are that are very much associated with the establishment getting involved in primaries. We have to work against that. Let the primaries be competitions between the candidates themselves. Let it be a free exchange of ideas, a marketplace really of a discourse, and that's the way that it should be. The Democratic Party should stay out of all of this. I'm strongly behind that. And the other thing when it comes to actual electoral reform, I don't know if this really falls in line with that. Is two things. One, we have to do away with the electoral college. I think that we need to go back where one vote equals one person's vote equals one person equals one vote, and this electoral system where the states are tied up, so on and so forth. In the end, I think it can cause problems, like we saw with the last election that brought Donald Trump to the presidency. And I'm also a strong believer in term limits. I think that we should look at instilling term limits on the U.S. House of Representatives as well as the United States Senate. This is, again, if you look at the broad scope of American history over the last 100 years, we've been about term limits. There have been many states out there who've term limited their state legislatures, their county commissions, their city councils, their mayors, who've term limited their governors. And this is important to understand, too. Even we as an American people, we term limited the presidency through a constitutional amendment in the 20th century. It's only, I think, fair and fitting that we look at Congress and at the U.S. Senate as also, arenas now where we can actually also set up term limits. My thing is this: if you're in the House of Representatives 6 terms, 12 years, And in the Senate, toggling between 2 terms, which is 12 years, and 3 terms, which is 18 years. If you haven't got anything done in 12 to 18 years, you're not going to get anything done, period. I think we need to work on that. And this also brings in a new flow, a constant flow of new people now who are not tied up to the establishment, who are not tied up to the actual the conglomerate that is Washington, D.C., all these big money and big special interests. So we have to, again, establish term limits, I think, and I will work on towards that, establishing that measure there in Congress.
There's one apprehension I have with that. Mm-hmm. Bernie.
Oh, Bernie, yes. But
I don't want him going anywhere.
Yeah, I know, that is true. That is true. But Bernie needs to be president. He needs to lead the U.S. Senate. He needs to maybe run for president. That would be something that is on his maybe to-do list here shortly. We'll see.
You do have a close primary. I'm in Pennsylvania. We have one as well. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you would like to see ended?
Yeah, I'm supporting. I think the close primaries really become these small competitions within the Democratic Party, within the Republican Party, period. I think, and again, democracy in the end is the most important thing to me. I think that if we have open primaries or even weighted elections where you can actually pick several candidates, 3, maybe 4, and then you weigh them. This is a new idea that's being tossed around now in the election reform world. I think there's a lot of merit to it. What this really fosters now is for candidates, first and foremost, to really campaign. Hard, because you could be a Republican now who believes in single-payer healthcare and could vote for a Democrat if need be. And we also know that there are a lot of progressive ideas that are very popular with Republicans. Immigration reform, very popular with Republicans. Single-payer healthcare, we know that the plurality of Republicans support this now. Term limits on Congress and the U.S. House of Representatives. Republicans are also behind this sort of measure. Infrastructure spending. So what this does now, I strongly believe it allows we progressives now to actually have inroads into the more conservative elements of America, and we can start winning them over. If you don't like what your Republican has to say, you can vote for Democrat, and or whoever the progressive is in that race. So I'm very much strongly supporting the idea that we need to move away from closed primaries and have these more open elections during the primary period, so to speak.
Absolutely, and also the advantageous thing would be, say in New York City when, they estimated over 1 million people were turned away because they were registered independent.
Yeah.
I mean, just another reason how Bernie would have won, essentially.
I got a lot to say about that. I was just say one thing. I was getting ready to run for Congress when we had the caucuses here, so I couldn't register as a Democrat because you had to have a certain time frame where you were an independent before running as an independent, and I couldn't caucus for Bernie Sanders. If we didn't have these closed primaries, if we had more open systems of elections at that level, I could have caucused for him as an independent. I was all the way behind him. Like I told you, I caught the burn big time. He inspired me to run for office as an independent. In that race, because I mean, when I think about the Bernie Sanders, I think about his independent approach to lawmaking, the fact that he didn't, he wasn't bought out or hadn't sold out to anybody. That's one of the reasons why I ran as an independent. The most successful independent campaign, by the way, congressional campaign in Nevada history. I will say that it was Bernie who inspired me, but I do feel bad because I wasn't able to caucus for him because I was an independent. I was held out, from that race.
Understandably, and it's things like those that are so discouraging. We should be able to vote for who we want. And speaking of ranked choice voting, Maine actually implemented that, and they're voting, I think, in the next sometime this month. So it'll be interesting to see what their results are like and possibly implement them in other states. On your platform, you do talk about the environment. That is a kind of a broad topic. But what are your biggest concerns environmentally?
I think first and foremost, I think this is really just the foundational philosophy of this country. You have people out there, people in power, powerful people, saying that climate change does not exist, that climate change is not a real thing, that it's not man-made. When all the science out there is saying that this is a real serious issue for us. And this is a man-made problem. I remember Bernie Sanders, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, everybody, all these people saying, hey, look, if 98% of the scientists out there are saying that this is a fact, then it's a fact. Climate change is real, and it's a man-made situation over here. So that's one thing that we have to be very cautious about. We have so many people in power, congressmen, senators, governors, presidents, who are saying that climate change is not real and that it doesn't exist. We have to battle against that tremendously. It's one of the greatest lies that are being told to the American people, period. So we have to address that first and foremost, and strongly address it wherever those sort of statements are made. Secondly, I think that we have to start looking at a 21st century renewable energy-based platform for, again, limiting the amount of man-made pollution that's going on and creating some of these situations, greenhouse gases, so on and so forth. We need to look into solar. Nevada is huge on that. We have to do all that we can to help the solar industry. Again, this will work against in creating a more renewable sources of energy. We have to look at nuclear options, keep the nuclear stuff away from Nevada. We don't want to Yucca Mountain, here. But there's ways of keeping the repositories in the places where the actual the nuclear capacity is being taken place, period. But we have to look into nuclear as a renewable source of energy. We have to look at all kinds of different things that are taking place. The algae-based ways of creating, safer energy sources, so on and so forth. There's many different things, and we have to also fund the research that's being taken place there. I know there's a lot of folks who are working at taking the money out of research and investing it into other arenas, but it's important to fund research that's taking place specifically in renewable energy. Bring that money back to our universities, but it's such a drive really among scientists to want to have a more more research into renewable energy processes, so on and so forth. I'm going to be strongly behind that. We're going to look at incentives like capping and trading, which is again a market-based solution to the problem of overpollution. We need to support measures and bills at the federal level, at the state level, so on and so forth, that create those sort of policies now that can actually work against pollution in our environment. And I'm strongly going to be behind those sort of policy measures and endeavors for sure.
So is it, are you then saying it's your stance that that global warming was not a hoax created by the Chinese?
It is a fact. It is a scientific fact. It is real. Global warming is real. It is not a hoax.
Just wanted to
Xi Jinping, the president, myself, if I get a chance to meet him and see him.
On the note of creating green jobs, do you support a federal job guarantee?
Oh yeah, of course. I think that we have these are things that these ideas that people think that are out of the board, they're radical, but we have the capacities of doing these things. Universal employment. Is something that we should all push ourselves towards. There's dignity in labor. There's dignity in the fact that you have some sort of a job. And we should push towards it. There are countries in Europe and Asia that are experimenting with this, and we see overall happiness increasing. We see things like suicides decreasing, because you have something productive that you're now a part of, and you also see people who now are guaranteed some sort of basic income. And again, all these things help create now a society that's more stable, that's happier. I'll be honest with you, and that's also one that's more productive in the end. So I would definitely support a federal jobs guarantee.
Awesome. I kind of figured you would.
I'm an economic progressive. It's heart and soul. All the way. I think the ideas that Bernie Sanders is promoting, a lot of the ideas that are coming out of the progressive movement that deals specifically with the economy, raising the minimum wage, reinstating the Glass-Steagall Act, so on and so forth, universal basic income. These things are viable ideas. A single-payer healthcare system, tuition-free college. These are again economic policies in the end that are going to help elevate productivity in this country and make America an even more productive nation. Period.
Absolutely. Is there something else on your platform that we didn't discuss? I think we got to everything I have listed.
I'm an open book. I'm not somebody like Dina Titus who's not going to have open town halls, with the public. I'm an open book. You can ask me anything. If you think I'm great, tell me I'm great. If you think I'm an idiot, tell me I'm an idiot. How can I become a better congressman for you? So I'm here for any questions you have. I'm here for you.
One question I'm curious about, because you're so intelligent and you're very knowledgeable about politics and everything like that.
You make me blush. If it wasn't so brown, I'd be turning red right now.
When did you become an actual activist? Like, when did you start in the streets, holding signs, marching? How long have you been doing that? Was it after November 9th, or has it been longer?
I've been an activist for a long time, if you think about that. I've been very involved with the community. I remember in high school, we're a hotbed for politics. Rancho High School, the school that I went to. We've had many people go on to become congressmen, run for Secretary of State, governorship, who've been affiliated with my school. And it's a very progressive community that we have there. So as a teenager, I was always getting caught up, with, hey, we need some of these students to come down to the courthouse and protest against deportation, or for raising the minimum wage, or for union rights, or for raising teacher pay and things like that. And that's how I became interested in politics. I started paying attention to the issues a bit more. I started becoming more aware of the overall affairs that were taking place at the local level. And I also became interested in electoral politics because of that. So I've been, I would say, civically engaged and a very active activist since high school. And and that's something I do promote with my own students. I always give them opportunities, or tell them about opportunities to get out in the community and become involved. I'll offer them extra credit. This is again to all my students, regardless if you're progressive or conservative. Go to these different great events that are taking place, protests, rallies, and write about them. Tell me what you feel. What do you think? What's happening there? So I encourage myself to, as a teacher who's teaching at the very same high school that he graduated from, to also get those students out there and thinking critically about the world that they're living in. And one way of doing that is by encouraging activism amongst my students.
I can't fathom how different my life would be if I had, teachers who encouraged me to do that. Mm-hmm. It would change everything. That's amazing. That is awesome.
Thank you. It's one thing that I'm, very, it's near and dear to my heart is education. And giving your all as a teacher. And when you're a teacher, you're not just a teacher. You become a life coach. You become a mentor. You become a confidant. You become a counselor. And it's really very important to really highlight the fact that it's at those years where we actually become in many ways who we are. And it's important to understand those kids and to support them in all ways necessary.
Absolutely. If there's something you want to leave our audience with, just to take away so they go to your website, or, throw you a few dollars, or recommend you to people in Las Vegas, what do you want to leave our audience with?
Mm-hmm. I'll say one thing. First and foremost, if you do want to donate, you can donate through my website. It is right back over here, secure.agblue.com/donate/Reuben D'Silva. You can donate there, or you can go to my website, DeSilvaForCongress.com. There's a link. So yes, we grassroots candidates, we really rely upon these small individual contributions. And going into these last waning days of the election, this is when we need it most. We have radio ad buys that we need to purchase. We need to get out there, get food for our canvassers, pay for their water and pizza, so on and so forth. These things all matter, and every dollar that you donate is directly invested in that endeavor. And lastly, I'll say this, if I could just have a minute or two, and that is that we're really faced with a really important moment now in American history. We can really shake things up. We can work and dismantle the status quo and create a new vision, a progressive vision for this country. But we need you to get involved. We need you wherever you're at now, whatever part of the country, to participate, especially in these primary elections, these closed primary states specifically, where we have great progressives running against establishment Democrats. We need you to get out there and vote. Your vote is free. Your vote matters, and it's something that people have died for. Think of Martin Luther King Jr., who died in the process of garnering civil rights. It's something that we should hold very near and dear to our hearts. It's something that every single one of you has as an American citizen. and can also exercise that right for those of us who want American citizens, who aren't American citizens today. You can be their voice and vote for candidates who support things like immigration reform with the pathway to citizenship, who support raising the minimum wage, who support reining in Wall Street, who support environmental measures to protect our environment, and the list can go on and on and on and on and on. So I'm telling you one thing: get out and vote. This is primary season. You can make a difference, and you will make a difference if you get active and go ahead and cast that ballot. And lastly, I'll say this: there was a very interesting thing that took place in one of the, I believe it was Washington State, where Bernie Sanders now had more folks attend a rally of his at the Mariners Stadium than actually came out and voted for him in the primary. And I believe Hillary Clinton ended up winning that primary. That goes to show that there's a lot of interest out there, especially amongst those young progressives, period, young and old, in candidates, in policies. But what matters in the end is getting them elected. So get out and vote, and let's make it happen.
Absolutely. And you guys, he's so right. Like they're estimating California had about 21% of voter turnout. And that's quite honestly, it's completely unacceptable. So we have to get out there. We can't complain unless we go out and make our voice heard. I get being discouraged. We all are, but you guys have to. We're counting on you. There's a lot of great Las Vegas candidates who you guys, have to choose from. Well, not really. There's like one in each district.
Reuben D'Silva.
But you know what I mean. I mean, I wish I could totally vote for Reuben. I mean, you're phenomenal. You are amazing. I'm so glad I got to interview you.
I love you too, Joy. I've heard so much about you. I've watched the Real Progressive show, and it really is an honor being here, being interviewed by you, and being on your show here this evening.
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
I don't
Joe,
know how to take compliments, guys.
I love you, Joe. If you're still watching, I love you, Joe Seiko.
Oh, thank you.
You need to think about running for office here soon, too. Again, yourself. Definitely got to look into that.
I curse too much. I sincerely wish you all the best on Tuesday. My fingers are crossed for you, Michael Weiss, and Amy Villela. All three of you. I am rooting for you so hard. So again, thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. Please share this show. Recommend Reuben to people in Las Vegas. Get the word out because they are voting in 4 days on Tuesday. So it's a big deal. So once again, thank you so much, Reuben. I really appreciate it.
Joy, thank you so much. And it was a great honor and a privilege to be on your show here this evening.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Take care.